Panasonic have released the Lumix TZ300, a new compact camera with a 1-inch sensor, a 15 times Leica-certified zoom lens, the ability to shoot RAW and film in 4K, and all for less than £1,000. I've had it for a short period to test, and today I want to give you an honest, real-world look at what it's like to actually use. Firstly, if you're wondering who this camera is for, then I would say it's for anyone who wants a better quality image than their phone can give them. It's got a proper zoom, or for a camera that fits in your pocket, whether that's for a family trip, a city break, a holiday, or just a day out where you want more than your phone can offer, but you don't want to carry a big bag full of kit. So let's see how it performs. I really like the look of this camera. It's clean, it's modern, it feels solid in the hands, it's really well made. It comes in black or dark silver. I've had the dark silver one, and I think it's going to age really well. The body is compact enough to truly fit in a jacket pocket or a small bag, which feels like an obvious thing to say, but sometimes when we talk about small cameras, we're comparing them to much bigger, older DSLRs or even newer interchangeable lens cameras. To give you a sense of scale, I personally shoot on a Fujifilm X100 VI, which by most standards of cameras these days is considered to be a compact camera or a small camera. The TZ300 makes it look quite big. This is truly pocketable, and for a camera with such a long zoom range, it's really worth emphasising that point. It felt comfortable to hold. The grip, although shallow, was just enough for me, and even with my longer nails it felt great. The controls are laid out sensibly. One thing I particularly liked is the control ring on the front. In aperture priority or manual mode, you can use this to control your aperture, and it feels responsive and tactile. You can also assign it to manual focus when you are in manual focusing mode, which I'll come back to. It's a small touch, but it makes the camera feel more considered. Speaking of manual focus, it worked well. The camera shows focus peaking on screen so that you can clearly see when focus has landed where you want it. I found that quite useful in a few situations where focus was a bit more tricky to get for the camera to sort of get at. One accessory that's worth noting is the strap that came with it. It's included with it, but I would personally like to swap this for something like the Peak Design cuff. Just bear in mind that you'll have to use the adapter that comes with the Peak Design straps to make it work with the strap lugs, because they're very tiny. A huge selling point of this camera is the 15 times zoom, or for fellow photographers, that's a 24 to 360mm equivalent zoom range. This is so useful in a little travel camera like this, and I've included some image examples side by side to really illustrate just how far you can see. The lens is made to Leica standards. It's got 13 elements in 11 groups with multiple aspherical and ED elements, which means that distortion is kept minimal and chromatic aberration is kept under control. And in good light, the results are impressive for a camera of this size. Sharpness seems to be good across the entire zoom range, and the zoom is fast enough to ensure that you don't miss something fleeting, but without being so fast that you find yourself zooming way past where you wanted to be. You can enable digital zoom if you want to extend beyond this. It's turned off by default, and personally this is where I would leave it. You can still crop in later if you want to. Image stabilization deserves its own section here because it is a standout feature of this camera. Panasonic's 5-axis Hybrid OIS Plus does a very good job, and at 360mm or the full zoom range handheld, you're in territory where a lot of cameras would struggle, but I found that it could reliably get sharp images at slower shutter speeds, slower than you would expect, and it works in video too, so handheld footage is noticeably smoother than you'd get without it. It also made something else possible that I wouldn't normally attempt. It's what I've called blind shooting, because there's no tilt screen on this camera, which I'm going to come to in a second. So if you want to get the camera low down to the ground for a close-up of a flower or something like that, you've either got to lie down on the floor to compose the shot, or you're just making a best guess and pressing the shutter and hoping for the best. With good image stabilization, that blind shot has a much better chance of coming back sharp. So on to image quality. In good light, I was happy with the images that this camera produces. The 1-inch BSI or backside illuminated sensor captures good detail, colour rendering is natural, and the Leica glass does a great job. For a camera you can put in your pocket, the quality is there when the conditions are on your side. Low light is a little bit of a different story, and it's worth being upfront about that. The maximum aperture on this lens is f3.3 at the wide end, narrowing to f6.4 at full telephoto. That's not a bright lens, and in dim conditions you're going to find yourself pushing the ISO fairly quickly. The sensor handles noise reasonably up to a point, but beyond ISO kind of 3200 or so it does become noticeable, and at higher settings image quality drops off. This isn't unusual for a camera in this category, but it is worth knowing about. There is a built-in flash which does give you an option in low light situations, and it is nice to have, but the built-in flash does have its limits, just like any built-in flash does. This camera is at its very best in daylight and in good natural light. That is where it shines. Day-to-day autofocus is quick and reliable, face and eye detection works well, and for general photography, people, street scenes, landscapes, it locks on without much fuss. There's also a 4K photo mode that shoots at 30 frames per second, so you can fire a burst and then pick the sharpest frame afterwards, which is a useful option for anything that's moving super quickly or unpredictably. Post focus is another feature worth a quick mention. You shoot a sequence and then after the fact you can choose where the focus lands. It uses focus stacking as well, which lets you blend multiple focus points into one image so you have extended depth of field. Very useful for close-up macro kind of work. And speaking of close-ups, the TZ300 can focus down to 3 centimeters at the wide end, which opens up some nice close-up possibilities. Textured, details, small objects. The results are sharp, and it's a nice feature that always appeals to a lot of people. It's always a popular one, that one. The one frustration with this camera is that there is no tilting screen, so composing a close-up shot at ground level means either guessing or getting down on the floor. As I mentioned, the image stabilization helps with shooting blind, but a tilt screen would make this feature much more usable in practice. It's one hardware omission that I kept coming back to. I also found the lack of a dedicated ISO button frustrating. I found myself having to go into the menu. Now, at first it turned out that I'd just missed the quick menu button. The quick menu, which is the bin symbol button, and does have Q menu written below in tiny writing, gives you a quick access to things like ISO, metering modes, and some other options. That said, most people buying this camera aren't relying heavily on manual shooting for stills or video like I lean towards. Onto the video, the TZ300 shoots 4K at 30 frames per second, and there's also the option to do 120 frames per second full HD for slow motion footage as well. For a compact camera, that's a very reasonable specification. The OIS works well for handheld video, and the footage in good light looks clean and detailed. Most people using this camera will probably put it on auto and shoot, and for that usage case, it does a really good job. There is a snap video mode, also worth a quick mention. It will let you record short clips and stitch them together in-app with transitions, which is a fun, low-effort way to put a holiday video together without touching editing software. I didn't get to try the stop motion mode either, but again, it's worth a mention, and it's there for anyone who wants to experiment with that. There's 22 creative control filters on this camera, ranging from monochrome to miniature effect to toy pop. Some of these are genuinely fun. Toy pop gives you that vivid, punchy look that works well for colourful street photography, and I always like the miniature effect filter. It's really fun. It's a classic tilt shift imitation, and it can be used really effectively. Some of the others though, colour select, where everything goes monochrome except one chosen colour. For example, you know, choose the reds in the colour. I'll be diplomatic here, it feels a bit 2008, but it's there if you want it. I'd be surprised if many people reach for that regularly. The monochromes are fine, they're quite nice, but they don't have the depth of character like Fujifilm does or OM System do with some of their filters as well. They do the job, they're fun, they're creative, but there's room for Panasonic to put more thought into this going forward. If they took a little bit of the inspiration from how those brands have developed distinct aesthetic looks and feels to their pictures, rather than novelty effects, I think they'd get more mileage out of the feature, and more people really want that stuff now. The screen itself is very customizable in terms of what's displayed. You can have it completely clean or with a full overlay with loads of information, including a histogram, which I appreciated. There are two things that tend to come up with cameras like this: the lack of a viewfinder and the lack of a tilting screen. Now, on the viewfinder, I genuinely didn't miss it. Viewfinders in cameras of this size are often quite underwhelming in practice, and I would rather that Panasonic use the space and the budget elsewhere, which is what they've done. If you know you rely on a viewfinder, then that's worth factoring in, but for me, it wasn't a huge problem. The tilting screen, I did miss, I've said that before, but specifically when I wanted to shoot from a low angle or even up from above and seeing what I'm photographing. For the macro usage case especially, it would make a real difference. That's probably my main practical frustration with this camera, but on the positive side, it's one less moving part to worry about, and it does keep the size down. Battery life is also something to plan around. I would strongly recommend picking up a spare battery if you're planning a full day out using this camera, particularly for travel. You can charge via USB-C in camera, so you can top it up from a power bank, but the battery depletes faster than you might expect, particularly with 4K video or extensive zoom use. A spare is not optional, it's very sensible, it's almost essential. I drained this battery very quickly, quicker than I expected. So overall, there's always a compromise when you're choosing a camera. You can't have small, light, a large sensor, a long zoom, a viewfinder and a tilting screen all in one package for under £1,000. It just doesn't work like that. The question is whether the compromises are ones that you can live with. And for most people who'd be drawn to this camera, I think they are. The TZ300 is the perfect size for an everyday carry, and it produces quality images in good light. The zoom is impressive, the image stabilization is strong, and it's got enough manual control for an experienced photographer who wants it alongside a perfectly capable auto mode for when you just want to point and shoot. If you're looking for something that gives you better quality, more reach than your phone, with a built-in flash and a design that you won't mind carrying around, I think this is a very strong option. It's a camera that I would easily recommend to someone who is looking for a better camera to take everywhere with them on holiday, to capture their family life and at weekends. The 15x zoom is a real draw. It's priced at $849 at launch, which puts it into a competitive price bracket, but the 1-inch sensor, the Leica glass and the build quality do justify that position. If you want to spend a little bit more money and can sacrifice on the zoom, or you need a viewfinder, then the Sony RX100 VII is a solid option that's going to perform better in low light. If the best image quality and those more filmic looks are something that you crave and you can sacrifice the zoom again, then maybe have a look at the Ricoh GR IV instead. If you can sacrifice on size and really want to push the budget, but again are prepared to say goodbye to the zoom, then look at the Fujifilm X100VI or the interchangeable lens Fujifilm X-E5. If you want a complete wildcard, but you want a compact camera that fits in your pocket, that's loads of fun to use, and the focus is on experience, then have a look at the Fujifilm X Half. If zoom is all you care about, but you still want the camera that fits in your pocket and to save some money, then take a look at the Lumix TZ99 from Panasonic. This has got a 30x zoom, but it does have a smaller sensor, so you are going to sacrifice on image quality and low light performance here. We've reviewed a lot of these cameras and many more, so I'll put the links to those below. I'll give us a subscribe to see what's coming next. If you've got any questions about the TZ300 or the alternatives, then leave them in the comments below. I'm happy to answer any that I can. Hopefully this video has helped you to decide whether this camera or maybe one of the alternatives is a suitable one for you. Please remember that you can buy any of these cameras from us at Wilkinson Cameras, or you can see them in many of our Northwest based stores. We have been around for 40 years this year. We know what we're talking about. And when you support us by purchasing from us, it means that we can continue to support you with videos like this. So thank you for watching.